That's too bad. Yeah, that just can take a toll on you. Well, if you looked into American customer care, isn't that a little bit different? I mean, yeah. Alrighty. How's the commercial load looking? I didn't even take a peek. Yeah, and we're honestly, I always tell you it's going to go this way, and it usually goes the other way. But I'm thinking we might need to use some of that, especially this first hour, just because really I don't like. There's a 15-minute block that I anticipated we would use, and we're not probably going to use it now. So yeah. And not yet. There are reports out there that he's going to go down to Miami and sign with the Dolphins. Yeah. Brendan Marshall got traded. Your boy Brandon, he got traded to the New York Jets. Yeah, he is. Yeah, I feel bad for Gino, man, because there's nothing worse than a bad quarterback who's got a really egotistical, just drama queen wide receiver screaming at him to get him the ball, and he physically can't do it. Oh, yeah, he does. Well, he's got to be such a cancer in the locker room to the point where they didn't even want to bring him and they wanted to trade him. I mean, he's a talented wide receiver. No. Okay. 30 seconds, Amanda. Hey, did you put that link on the Facebook page by chance?
I put it on my Facebook page.
Okay.
I replied to I shared your link that you put out there.
Okay. Go ahead, Amanda.
I'm here.
This is the Jeff Robb Show, presented by Bud Light, live at TPC Sports Bar inside Mystique Casino.
That's right. It is the Jeff Robb Show, and we want to thank our main sponsor, Bud Light. We are live inside TPC Sports Bar here on Friday, March 6th. I'm Jeff Robb, joined by my partner in crime, John Atkinson. John, another week. How many weeks is this now? I know you keep track.
This is week 27.
All right, week 27. This is the third week that we have the show available to stream on YouTube, and you can do that. Get the link now at the Jeff Robb Show on Facebook. Scroll down, and you'll find the link, and you can watch the show live on YouTube. Also, we tweeted the link as well, so you can find that on Twitter. Follow the Jeff Robb Show, and get the link to watch us on YouTube. And then also, of course, we have the podcast that we post on WDBQAM.com. You can also find that on our sister station, Eagle102rocks.com. Look for it in the trending bar, and we update that weekly and usually have the Fresh Show podcast available by about noon on Monday. John, busy time of the year for sports. You've got, the NCAA men's basketball tournament starting to kind of gear up. Joe Lenardi's bracketology, something to definitely follow now. The Big Ten season going to be coming to an end. You've got the Big Ten tournament kicking off next week, so you've got all that going on. You've got NFL free agency starting next week, and locally you've got some sports that are coming to an end, and the the state tournament, in high school sports, and we can't go any further without acknowledging Iowa Class 4A number 2 ranked Western Dubuque girls basketball team beating the 6th ranked Sioux City Bishop Heelan 47-38 in the 4A state semifinal last night. They are going to get a state championship rematch against top-ranked Harlan tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. So good luck, and again, congratulations to the Western Dubuque Bobcats girls basketball team.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And like you said, this is our 27th week, and I think right before we go on the air, I always think, it's a busy week in sports, and I guess it just always is.
It is, right, it is. Every week, and honestly, I think that the lull in sports out of the whole year has got to be, all-star break in baseball over the summer.
Yep.
I mean, that's got to be the slowest week in sports. In fact, there's that one day where there's just nothing going on, and that's when ESPN has the ESPYs and all that good stuff. Dubuque Waller boys basketball team beat Crestwood 71-43 at the U.S. Cellular Center Monday night. Golden Eagles were 15-9 on the season, going to face Waverly Shellrock, who's 22-2 in the Iowa Class 3A state quarterfinal on Tuesday. That game is going to be at 6:35 p.m. Also, shout out to our neighbors in the North Cascade, who went 22-2 this season. They are going to play Regina, who is 20-4 on the season, on Tuesday at the state tournament at 10:30 a.m. That's in 2A action. And again, boys basketball. So some local teams going pretty deep this season.
Yeah, it's a big time of year for, and Iowa's a great high school basketball state. I mean, they take it pretty serious, and there's always been some great teams from Iowa.
See, I'm from Minnesota. I talk about that pretty frequently on the show. And one of the things that I really miss this time of year is being able to watch the Minnesota State hockey tournament, the high school hockey tournament. It's going on right now, and I'm missing it. I sometimes stream the radio stations up in the Twin Cities on my phone, as I'm getting ready in the morning or whatnot, and they're talking about it, and it's something I definitely miss. But you're right. The basketball tournament, the high school basketball tournament down here in Iowa is a big deal, and then also, of course, wrestling. In fact, as popular as wrestling is in Minnesota, and it's very popular, there are some really good programs up there. Eastview in Apple Valley is a really good wrestling school. But as popular as it is in Minnesota, I don't ever remember it having the same kind of popularity that it does in Iowa.
Yeah, on the college level, Iowa and Minnesota have always had, for decades, have had great collegiate wrestling programs.
The show agenda, it seems like week in and week out, is always a very fluid deal, because we come in here, we've got, okay, this is how this segment's going to go, that segment, the following segment, and it just never works out that way. And we're okay with that. I mean, I'm comfortable with it. So we were going to have Jim Suhan from the Minneapolis Star-Tribune and play back the interview I recorded earlier today. I have the interview. Problem is that the quality, Jim's down in Fort Myers covering the Minnesota Twins spring training. Quality is not great. And to be honest with you, Jim had some great things to say, and I do want to give him his due credit. He's a Minneapolis Star-Tribune columnist. He's also got a podcast, SuhanUnfiltered.com, and he's a great guy to follow, especially if you're a Minnesota sports fan, at Suhan, S-O-U-H-A-N, Strip. He had some good comments on Adrian Peterson. I wanted to get him on for two reasons. Number one, to comment on Adrian Peterson in that situation, and then also talk briefly about the Minnesota Twins. I know we're a Cubs, White Sox, then probably Brewers/Cardinals market, so I can appreciate that. The Twins are probably in fifth place, but I wanted to get his take on that. He didn't really have a lot. I didn't really ask him too many questions that we haven't already discussed or won't touch on ourselves regarding the Minnesota Twins. Basically talked about those prospects that we spent a good portion of last week's show talking about. And as far as Adrian Peterson, I guess he kind of echoed the same sentiment that I have and that other people have, who have an opinion. I'm sure every Vikings fan probably feels the same way. Part of you wants to see him come back because he's probably going to have a big year, and the fan in you wants to see him come back. You're probably not happy the comments that he's made. And honestly, the big news regarding Adrian Peterson, and again, we didn't need Jim on here to tell you that, and it's been all over the place, is that the Vikings general manager Rick Spielman and head coach Mike Zimmer and assistant general manager George Payton flew down to the Houston area to visit Adrian at his home on Wednesday. Did you see the picture that I put up on our Facebook page?
No, I don't think I did.
Of the two. Okay, so KARE 11, I think the local TV station up in Minneapolis, I think they sent someone down there to kind of stake out the house. So they got a picture that's through like these gates, and you see the general manager and Adrian, they're embracing in a hug, and it's a solid hug. Like there's the bro hug, like the one tap with
the uncomfortable hug.
Yeah, this was not that. This was full embrace, 2 hands wrapped around, bring it in, hug.
This kind of reminds me of the Brett Favre retirement.
You know it does.
He retired, then he unretired, and he flew to Green Bay, and then he got back on the same plane half an hour later and flew back to Mississippi.
And there's no doubt that Rick Spielman is okay with putting his tail between the legs and doing some shameless stuff in order to get the player he wants back on the Vikings, and he's in the process of doing that right now. And honestly, one of the things I brought up with Jim in the interview is that, when I had Jim on after the story broke in September, we both agreed that Adrian had probably played his last down. I've softened on that stance, and I think Jim has too. But the one logic behind that was, well, he's done this season probably, and then the Vikings won't bring him back at his high cap number next season. I think he's scheduled to make just under $13 million. His cap number is over $15 million, and that doesn't look to be the case. I mean, if you just read between the lines of all the quotes that the Vikings front office is putting out there, you get the indication that the Vikings are comfortable paying him the salary he's scheduled to make, and you also get the impression from Adrian's quotes and his agent's actions that Adrian probably isn't going to be too receptive to taking a pay cut. So if he's going to be back in Minnesota, it's going to be at the current number or even maybe more than he was slated to make.
Yeah, and that story, we talk about it every week. It's we give an update on it, and it gets more confusing as time goes on.
Yep. I do want to congratulate Doug Fink, who wins a pair of tickets to see the Steve Miller Band at the U.S. Cellular Center in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, on May 22nd. Doug was one of the listeners who, on the Jeff Robb Show Facebook page, left a comment about his favorite sports team. And I'm surprised there was not more Bears. We had really all over the place. We had a Cleveland Cavaliers.
Really?
We had, of course, there was Chicago sports, dominated it. But Doug, and I say your boy Doug because apparently he's a friend of yours,
yep.
And he's in Milwaukee. He is a New York Mets fan.
Yes, he was. Actually, I've known Doug for a lot of years. We went to grade school together, and he became a New York Mets fan. And he'll probably deny this. In 1969, when we were about 8 years old, the Miracle Mets of 1969. So shortly after that, I became a Los Angeles Dodger fan. So
that's neat. Well, Doug is going to be enjoying the Steve Miller Band show, and we want to thank him for responding. And again, feel free to check out the Jeff Robb Show on Facebook, because we do post random various stuff on there. And in fact, I think I posted the story about Harrison Ford and the plane accident yesterday. It appears that Harrison is going to make a full recovery. He had some looks like pretty visually nasty injuries to his head, some lacerations and stuff, but is expected to make a full recovery. Of course, the big news for Chicago sports fans, the Bears have traded Brandon Marshall to the New York Jets for a fifth round pick. There we go. Brandon gets $7.7 million, what was in his contract for this upcoming year. And the big thing is the Bears, I don't think we're going to release him. And if that's really the avenue they were going to go down, then that kind of is a strong indication as to how big of a cancer he is in the locker room, because he was due $5.6 million in dead money this year. So really, we're only going to gain about $2.1 million in cap space by simply releasing him. And there's no doubt that Brandon Marshall is an incredibly talented wide receiver. And he had a down year last year. He was plagued by injuries, and that cut into his playing time. And I think he only put up like 721 yards, which last season was the first in 6 years that he hadn't put up 1,000 yards. I think he had 5 years of 1,000+ yards. So you talk about consistency when he's on the field and can perform at an elite level. And I still believe he can get there. And I from just judging on Twitter and social media, the response from Bears fans, they're kind of puzzled at this. I mean, they're not really puzzled in that they don't know why it happened. I think a lot of Bears fans understand. They're just not too happy about it.
Yeah, and we were talking about it before the show. And in the NFL, unlike baseball, where in a guy's 15-year or 10-year career, he may get traded once or twice because there's just more trades in baseball. But football is very unusual to have trades. Brandon Marshall in his career has been traded 3 times. So there's something underlying. And to his credit is that last year, and I watched a lot of Bears games, even though the Bears weren't playing very good, he was one guy that didn't look like he quit on the field.
Should mention, if you want to comment on this story or anything else we talk about in the show, pick up the phone and dial 563-585-1490. That's 563-585-1490. So Brandon Marshall's in New York. Currently, they have Brandon Marshall, Eric Decker, and Percy Harvin. If that was the wide receiving core they would roll into the season with, that's almost an embarrassment of riches at the wide receiver position. It's almost, I think, a foregone conclusion at this point. Percy Harvin will be released. I think he's due over $10 million next year. Jets aren't going to put that much money into one position, especially when you've got a questionable quarterback to even be able to distribute the ball to one of them. So Percy Harvin, in all likelihood, going to be released. And it just seems like people are already out there saying it's almost a done deal. Percy hits the market unless another team comes forward and offers him an exorbitant amount of money, that Percy is going to end up on maybe like a 1-year prove-it deal in New England and sign with the Patriots, and that just makes too much sense.
Yeah, the Jets, they have a problem at quarterback. They got Geno Smith, and, maybe you put up big numbers in college. But, you can have all the wide. You can bring back Jerry Rice from 1985, and I don't think it's going to help Geno Smith.
No, Geno Smith's not the answer. Honestly, he when he faced the Vikings this year, he threw his first pass was actually tipped up in the air by Gerald Hodges, our backup outside linebacker, and then it was housed for a touchdown. But after that, the guy played a pretty good game. I mean, he really did. I was actually impressed. I was expecting a really lousy quarterback that would fall in line with the performance of a lot of Vikings quarterbacks I've seen over the years, and he actually was pretty impressive. And so I would say I left that game, turning that game off. The Vikings ended up winning the game in overtime. I left that game thinking, okay, you know what, Geno Smith showed me something there. I was actually impressed. But then you look at the numbers and you look at some of the other stuff he's done. And I remember watching a Thursday night game. I think it was against Miami or Buffalo, one of those games where he just looked awful. I mean, they could not do a damn thing with the ball.
Yeah, he looked like Joe Webb couldn't throw the ball five.
But you know what? If they can figure out the quarterback position, they re-signed David Harris, their linebacker, who was a free agent and was a name that had been thrown around as a possible replacement for Kiko Alonso, who was traded from the Bills and Rex Ryan and sent to Philadelphia and Chip Kelly in exchange for LaShawn McCoy, a blockbuster trade that just kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, it really did.
But they were floating David Harris around as a possible replacement for Kiko Alonso. Of course, Rex Ryan, very familiar with David Harris. That's not happening now. But you look at their defense and the way that they can perform, assuming that there's not a huge fall-off between Rex Ryan and Todd Bowles. And Todd Bowles is a defensive mastermind, just like Rex Ryan. I mean, he has made a name for himself in the NFL, really building a defense that started out with nothing and accumulated through the draft and free agency players over the years and made it really a solid unit. You look at the injuries that the Cardinals had last year, between Darnell Dockett, Darrell Washington getting suspended, and they had a ton of injuries all over the place, and they still were able to play at the elite level. So I got to think that Bowles is going to have that defense playing at a high level. You flip the script then and look at the offense, and you've got Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker on the outside. You got Jason Marno, the rookie tight end, who's going to be coming into his second year. And then you got Chris Ivory, who I think is a really undervalued running back. They have some nice pieces and a decent offensive line.
And you mentioned that Rex Ryan's gone, and I'm not sure who the Jets' offensive coordinator is or quarterback coach, but maybe one of them guys can get to Geno Smith and take him under his wing and do something with him.
Yeah, I have to believe that. I don't know that Geno Smith is going to have the opportunity. You know what? They might, by default, end up having an open competition for starting quarterback this year because there's really nothing out there as far as free agents that should be too appealing. And, it remains yet to be seen what their opinion is of Marcus Mariota.
Yeah, that's right. And, he's in the mix, and the Jets are going to be drafting right around that area, too.
So that's just, again, another element to this trade. But getting it back to the local angle here, and the Chicago Bears, who now, if you look at their depth chart, have Alshon Jeffrey at number 1. And I'll be honest with you, I like Alshon Jeffrey. I do. And he has impressed. I still don't know that you can definitively say he's a true number 1 wide receiver yet. I don't know that you can say that yet.
Yeah, because now the defense is going to double cover him. They're going to move a safety over to his side of the field, and playing alongside Brandon Marshall, of course, obviously took a bunch of heat off him. So we'll see how he does.
He has the ability, no doubt. He's shown flashes of it. He's just got to put it out there for an entire season. Marquise Wilson is now your number 2 in Chicago. You can't feel very comfortable about that. I know Marquise Wilson is a young wide receiver. He was injured and missed a good portion of last season. And I know that they have expectations for him in Chicago, but Chicago's now in the market for a wide receiver. And whether that's in free agency, whether that's through the draft, they're going to need to bring in somebody. I think if GM Ryan Pace had his preference on who that would replace Brandon at the number 2 spot, you'd like to bring in a contributing veteran, I would think, to kind of be a stabilizer with the young, still young Alshon Jeffrey, the really young Marquise Wilson, and have a veteran presence there in that wide receiving core.
I think the turnaround between a college wide receiver and a pro wide receiver, and we've seen this last year with so many good first-year wide receivers, I think that window's narrowed now. I think you can have more confidence in drafting a wide receiver in the first round, second round, and expecting him to play and really contribute more than you could 10 years ago.
Yeah, I agree with that to an extent. I still don't know that I would feel that comfortable, especially with Jay Cutler and, a first-time you got John Fox coming in there, first season in Chicago. I don't know that you'd feel that comfortable putting him right into the number 2 or even the number 3. Let him work its way into their role. You know what I mean? Like they did. Like I think Ted Thompson and the Green Bay Packers handled Devontae Adams Adams perfect.
Right.
I think the way you guys kind of let him progress up the depth chart. That's what you do with all rookies, really. I mean, that's the way that they handle him. But by the time that Adams got to December, I mean, he was your clear-cut number 3 guy, and now he's going to move up to number 2 if Randall Cobb's gone, and I think he's gone. I just think that there's going to be the Jaguars, the Raiders. Someone's going to just pay him more money than makes sense to Ted Thompson, and Devontae is going to end up moving up to number 2. But anyways, getting back to the Chicago Bears, I think that they would be better served going out there and getting a solid number 2 veteran option.
Sure.
And they've got cap money to burn. And that's the thing. This is Brandon Marshall getting traded I don't think anything to do about finances. I just don't. I mean, as far as the money is concerned, because they had the money to burn. And yeah, $5.6 million in dead money is a lot. So I didn't see them releasing him. $7.7 million though for Brandon Marshall is not like an exorbitant amount of money. Considering the production that he's put out there the last several years. But no doubt, there's no disagreement. They're going to have to do something in Chicago to address the number 2 spot. And if Marquise Wilson steps up and takes it over in camp, then that's a bonus for Bears fans.
And with the Bears, I mean, they have other needs, especially on defense. So they that number 2 wide receiver is the missing link for a run to the Super Bowl. I mean, they'd have to rejuvenate that defense, and they're soft at a lot of positions.
Vince Wilfork is a free agent as the Patriots don't pick up his option. Jacoby Jones released by the Ravens. We'll get to more NFL talk a little bit later on in the second hour. Another headline I wanted to touch on here, and we'll get into college hoops talk a little bit later on, but the Wisconsin Badgers beat the Gophers yesterday and won the Big Ten regular season title. Iowa is a lock now to make the tournament. Now it's all about seeding at this point. If you're Fran McCaffrey and the Iowa Hawkeyes, as they've been playing some really good basketball.
I would be very afraid tomorrow with Northwestern. Northwestern, I think, lost their first 10 Big Ten games, and I think they're 7-8, and that all started when they beat the Hawkeyes in overtime, and they're really on a roll, and they play in Iowa tomorrow. So, but I wouldn't take them lightly.
No, I don't think they're going to either. I think Iowa learned their lesson last time. The NCAA today suspended Syracuse basketball coach Jim Boeheim for 9 ACC games, took away 12 scholarships, and ordered that 108 wins be vacated as a result of a multi-year investigation into the university's athletic programs. Did you read this stuff? I mean, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. The NCAA said that the violations, which were self-reported by Syracuse, dated back to 2001 and included academic misconduct, extra benefits, failure to follow the drug testing policy, and impermissible booster activity. Like basically all the things you shouldn't be doing as the head coach at a college institute, at an educational institution.
The 3 big no's.
Yeah, he's you can make. I'd certainly listen to the argument that 9 games is probably actually a little light. So, yeah, and scholarships getting taken away, as I mentioned, 12. The NBA is exploring ways to space out the 82-game schedule. One idea is to have the finals go into July. San Antonio Spurs head coach Greg Popovich sounded off about this, and in true Pop fashion said that he's not a fan and that he won't report for work if it ends up going into July. And that life's too short, and that you need your time off. And I think we brought this topic up. The NBA possibly expanding their season or spacing it out to give the players more time to let their body recover. Personally, I don't think that anything needs to be done. I mean, I get that they're trying to cut down the wear and tear on the knees and everything, and trying to then in turn prolong players' careers, but. I mean, July.
Yeah.
Who cares about basketball in July?
Yeah, if you go into July, basically you're not going to have any off season for these guys to recover or have surgery or do any of those things. So yeah, I mean, actually they go well into June now, and that seems like it's too long. Season.
Exactly. The Bulls beat the Oklahoma City Thunder last night, 108-105, thanks to an each one more 3-pointer. With 2.1 seconds left, the former Purdue Boilermaker, Coach Tom Thibodeau said that Rose has been doing some form shooting and is in the early stages of his rehab from a torn meniscus in his right knee. Also want to mention this, Kirk Heinrich played his 697th game with the Bulls, passing Jerry Sloan for 3rd in franchise history. The Bulls have won 7 of their last 10 and are now in 2nd place in the Eastern Conference, and they're in Indiana tonight. 6 o'clock tip for that game, and then at San Antonio on Sunday at noon, and that game will be on ABC. And because I got DirecTV, I won't be able to watch it.
You wonder if the Bulls are the Bulls better without Rose? I mean, we talked about it last week. They played very well last year without.
I think that's preposterous to say that, but what I will say is this: I mean, statistically, you look at the numbers. Yeah. The numbers, there's not a fall off when he's there and when he's not there offensively.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I don't think they're that much. I mean, obviously the numbers don't lie.
Yeah, maybe they sell more tickets, but as far as wins and losses, it doesn't seem like it's a big stretch.
The Chicago Blackhawks host the Oilers tonight at 7:30, and the Rangers on Sunday at 6:30. Chicago's playing pretty well right now, especially when you consider the fact that one of their best players, Patrick Kane, is out. I wanted to get this actually out there, and this came out a little while ago, so it's not new news, but we haven't brought it up. And I wanted to get your thought on this. Snoop Dogg has a youth football league. I don't know. Did you know that?
Yep.
So do you know how successful his football league has been?
I think I know his son. There was maybe a 30-on-30 on ESPN about Snoop Dogg, and I think his son plays in college now.
His son actually has signed a letter of intent. He did this past signing season to play at UCLA.
Yeah, right.
So
big-time college.
Yeah, 20 former Snoop Dogg Youth Football League players have committed to D1 colleges to play ball. Very cool stuff. And I did see a documentary on this, too, a couple of years ago, I think, or just a short segment on it on SportsCenter or something like that. But, yeah, he's doing good things for the L.A. community in terms of youth football.
We can start connecting the dots now.
All right. That's it for headlines. And, again, we're going to come back. And I'll tell you what, let's come back and we'll talk some college hoops. How about we do that? All right, so we'll do that. We'll take a short break. We'll come back again. We're live inside TPC Sports Bar here at Mystique Casino. Great place to kick off your weekend and really spend your weekend. Come down and join us. If you can't, of course, you can always watch on YouTube. We've got a link to the stream on our Twitter account and also our Facebook page. And, of course, you can also tweet into us at The Jeff Robb Show and call in at 563-585-1490. It's The Jeff Robb Show on AM 1490 WDBQ.
Please stand by.
Oh, does it say that?
Yeah.
That's funny. Hey! Where'd you find them? There you go. Good luck.
Everybody listening on
There you
YouTube,
go.
let me know when this becomes annoying.
Hi, buddy. Hey, can you get these to Doug?
Yeah.
Okay.
Those are the same sweet.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna take 4 of those. Actually, it's kind of funny because we went to Waller together, Doug and Steve Miller's "Fly Like an Eagle," Waller Golden Eagles.
That's great.
That was our theme song. It came out in '79 or whatever.
That's cool.
Yeah, you'll get a kick out of that.
No, we're good. Just on a commercial break. Stand by. 1 minute.
Yeah.
I know.
5th round draft choice.
Well, hey, look at these two. You guys still look hungover from Vegas. How was it? Good times?
Doug, if you're watching, I got your tickets.
That's hilarious. Good to see you, man. What time do you guys finally get back? 5 seconds. Go ahead and play it. And we're back inside TPC Sports Bar here at Mystique. I want to give a shout out to the Dubuque Fighting Saints who are playing tonight against the Green Bay Gamblers. Puck drop is at 7:35, and then they do a home-and-home series against the Chicago Steel. So they're in Chicago tomorrow night before returning home on Sunday for a matinee game at 3:05. It's Superhero Sunday. Batman is going to be in attendance, and actually Chris Farber and I from our sister station 105 going to be running the first period intermission contest. It's going to be superhero trivia. Do you think you'd do well?
I think I would.
Yeah.
I think some of the newer superheroes, I would maybe not do very well, but some of the older ones, Batman.
Did you get into
Superman.
comic books when you were a kid?
I did.
Yep. Okay. Well, you're going to be at the game, so it'll be a good time. And we're going to have Dan Lev, Dubuque Fighting Saints team president, stopping by at 6:25. Want to spend a little bit of time here talking about, real quickly, I also want to mention that Marshawn Lynch has signed a 1-year contract with the Seattle Seahawks for $11 million, which is quite a bit of money. In fact, if Adrian Peterson doesn't play at his current number this year with the Vikings, if they restructure to trade him, then it looks like Marshawn Lynch is going to be the highest paid running back in the NFL, if not certainly second only to Adrian Peterson. I can't see DeMarco Murray getting that much money annually from any of the teams out there.
Yeah, and he had a lot of carries. What do you think about McCoy leaving Philadelphia? What do you think about that trade?
Here's the thing. If we're just looking at this as the trade itself, and that if Philadelphia is doing nothing else, then I think it's a horrible trade for Philadelphia. But I have to think that Chip Kelly has a plan here, and that he is going to go out and go after. See, here's the thing. I think he's going to go after the big dog. I think he's going to go after DeMarco Murray.
Yeah.
There has been Mark Ingram's name floated around there. Obviously, they're going to do something to replace LaShawn McCoy, and they've got money. They've got a lot of money to burn. You keep hearing the name Devin McCourty, the free agent, free safety from the New England Patriots. He's been linked to Philadelphia and also the New York Giants, so it sounds like there might be a little bit of a bidding war between at least those two teams and probably a handful of others as well.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising. In the last couple of years, Deshaun Jackson's gone. McCoy's gone now, and I think Jeremy Maclin is a free agent, and that was kind of the bedrock of Philadelphia's offense. I mean, all that speed and athleticism, and it looks like it may all be gone within the course of a couple of years.
And Chip Kelly, it's not to say that he doesn't want speed and athleticism. I mean, because of course he does. But he certainly has sent a strong message that it's his way or the highway, and he is not afraid to make unpopular decisions, and he's shown that. And he'll probably continue to do that. In fact, if anything, I think that Chip Kelly wants this team to continue getting faster, especially at the quarterback position. I don't think that Chip Kelly is enthused about moving forward with Nick Foles, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was traded, and I wouldn't be surprised if Philadelphia moves up and tries to get another former Oregon Duck in Marcus Mariota. And I saw a tweet out there. I forget who put it out there. It was someone on Twitter, but it said, Donald, the only duck that Chip Kelly hasn't acquired.
I thought that's a good. The thing is, an NFL head coach, their life expectancy isn't very long. So when you get that job, you know what? You might as well do it your way. With your players and your type of players, and just go for it.
Yep, I agree. And you know what? Now that we're just on NFL talk, screw it. Like I said, this is fluid. We'll go to NFL talk. We'll put the Hawkeye hoops and the college basketball talk on the back burner until next segment. We've got plenty of time here. As I mentioned, Jim Souhan took some time out of his schedule to call in. I had the interview all recorded. In fact, I could still play it if I chose to, but I feel like it's not probably the best audio to be airing just because of the quality of the phone call on his end down at Fort Myers, Florida. I don't know where he was checking in from, but it doesn't sound great. And put that out there for 15 minutes, I would just prefer not to.
Maybe he was out to sea on a fishing boat, fishing for marlin or something like that. I'm going to change directions real quick here, though. With Jim Souhan, did you ask him what the expectations like for Paul Molitor, the new?
I didn't really ask him what the expectations are because I kind of know that. Just being a Minnesota fan, maybe I should have, but I don't think the expectations are very high this season. I mean, I think everybody's pretty excited that there's a new regime in place, and as well respected as the former manager Ron Gardenhire was, and still is. I think as Twins fans and media are really looking forward to Paul Molitor and what he can bring to the table. I know me personally being a Twins fan, one of the things that I've been the most frustrated with over the years from the Twins has been the delay and the slow process of bringing their prospects up to the major league level. And you mentioned that the learning curve for wide receivers in the NFL has gotten smaller and smaller. It used to be, the saying was 3 years before they could really acclimate to the NFL game. And in some respects, with some players, that's still the case. But I also think that we're now seeing in baseball younger prospects coming up and making an impact on the game. And I want to see Alex Meyer, who is a 25-year-old pitcher in the Twin system, and really they're the one guy that has the ace potential in their farm system. I want to see him leave spring training on the active 25-man roster. I want to see him in the rotation, and I want to see Buxton and Sano, if they can dominate Double-A like they're going to be sent down to do after spring training. If they can dominate Double-A, like I think they will, I want to see them up before September, maybe look at a June arrival for those guys.
Yeah, and really in Major League Baseball, young players are coming up a lot faster. I think of Clayton Kershaw came up. I think he was 20 years old, maybe 19 when he got his first start. Mike Trout, Bryce Harper was under 20, right around 20 when he came up for Washington, and he's had some struggles in the last couple of years. But yeah, that puts the pressure on the other team to get their farm system moving to get them to the major league level.
Yeah, he had some good things to say about the Minnesota Twins, that's for sure. I'm just trying to think of anything else that he really added that I found insightful. He just basically named off the prospects we've been talking about: Alex Meyer, Buxton, Sano, and by the way, he mentioned that covering spring training is either his favorite or second favorite assignment outside of the Masters. So the Masters and spring training are 1A and 1B.
You know, over the last week I watched, I can't remember where they're golfing last Sunday, but I watched that, and I watched the minor league baseball, or not minor league, but preseason baseball this week, and that sun was just great. You know, I mean, in Florida and Arizona, and it just we can't wait to get ours.
Getting back to some NFL moves that we haven't already talked about, Vince Wilfork. How's it going, guys? Vince Wilfork is a free agent as the Patriots don't pick up his option. And I bring him up because I think that he would be a good fit in Green Bay in a Packers jersey. What do you think?
Well, you know, they got a Detroit guy on who had some issues with the police and everything.
Yeah, he's going Tony Montana on the bit. Yeah,
and it sounded like they dropped the charges or whatever. So I don't know if the NFL is still going to suspend him a couple games or how that's going to turn out.
They dropped the charge. I didn't hear that because I was wondering because I thought I had read somewhere where they were talking about the possibility of re-signing LaTroy Guion, and I was like, man, that's kind of quick with all the charges up in the air. So they dropped the charges. I can't see him not returning to Green Bay. But even if you bring Guion back, I mean, we're talking about Vince Wilfork at this point in his career, maybe more as a rotational guy, a guy you can bring into the fold. I don't know that Vince Wilfork, you know, is going to get the opportunity to be the nose tackle, you know, but I don't know, just the name thrown out there. I think he would look good in Green Bay.
And you know, they got B.J. Raji coming back from injury last year.
Did you guys sign him to more than a one-year deal?
I don't think they signed him yet.
Yeah, so he's out. I mean, he's a free agent. So he's he I guess is an option if they want to resign him.
And I did hear a story that they plan on pursuing him. So that's as close as it is right now.
Okay. Jacoby Jones was released by the Ravens in February. He's now signed a 2-year deal with the Chargers. Really made a name for himself as a return guy first and foremost. Reggie Wayne done in Indy. Indy is not going to pick up his option, and Reggie Wayne is now free to sign with any other team. Part of me really wants him to kind of retire and not. Yeah, and here's the thing: I'm not one of those sports fans that like looks at a player who tries to get an extra contract at the very tail end of their career. I don't think it tarnishes their legacy. To me, it doesn't. I'll remember how great they were when they were in their prime, and I won't forget that. But I think it's cool this day and age to have a player, especially at a skill position, just play their entire career for one team. I mean, I think that would be really cool. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what Reggie Wayne comes out and says that he wants to do. But as of now, he is not going to be returning to Indianapolis. The New Orleans Saints have a messy cap situation, and I think as of yesterday, they were $15 million over the cap. And they have they've floated out some players, some key contributors on defense as trade bait, and they have now restructured Marcus Colston has restructured his contract to try and get them closer to under the cap. I don't understand how the Saints. I mean, I know how you get it done. I know how you become, you know, so far over the cap, and that you sign, you know, Jarris Byrd last offseason, the prize safety from Buffalo. I know how you get to this point, but as a general manager, as a guy who is in charge of managing your cap, isn't this a fireable offense? I mean, when it's this drastic.
And you look at other teams, and not bragging about my Packers, but you know, they always have money to spend. It's hard to believe. I mean, they're always successful. They're always, you know, winning franchise, but it always seems somehow that they have money to spend, and it's getting rid of guys like, let's say, A.J. Hawk when he's at the end of his career.
But, I mean, you know, another team, and a team I think that NFL fans look to with even more respect than New Orleans is the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the Pittsburgh Steelers are going through the same mess right now. The Pittsburgh Steelers cap situation has gotten really, really bad over the last couple of years, and now they got to try and re-sign Big Ben here soon. Right. So, yeah, just not a very enviable situation with their salary cap. And, you know, again, the Green Bay Packers are the blueprint, and a lot of other teams have taken this same approach in that you build your team through the draft, you supplement through free agency. When you start getting into signing 2 and 3 big-name free agents 2 and 3 years in a row, that's when you run into problems like this.
And another guy that's retiring is Maurice Jones-Drew.
Yeah, we've got to mention Maurice Jones-Drew, who did he not crack 100 yards last year?
Yeah, he played with Oakland. You know, actually, I looked at his stats today, and he may have been over 100, but not much more. Yeah,
it was not. And I think Jack Del Rio, new head coach of the Oakland Raiders, was asked about the possibility of reuniting with Maurice Jones-Drew, and he was, I guess, I don't remember exactly what he said, but he was very non-committal I basically said, well, I enjoyed our time with Maurice, back in Jacksonville. So, yeah, Maurice Jones-Drew, done great career for him. And free agency starts on Tuesday. I cannot wait. I wish the NFL would go back to the old format where free agency started on a Saturday. Do you remember that?
Yep.
Because that was just so much fun. And this was before the days of smartphones. This is when I would just sit there and I would just hit refresh on chat boards and stuff, and you just wait for the news to leak in.
Yeah, they actually, part of the free agency actually, I think, starts tomorrow, and it's like a 3-day window for legal consorting with the other players, and it's kind of a mess.
Yep, they can start talking about things and trying to put the wheels in motion. So Tuesday, basically, when the shotgun goes off, or the pistol goes off, shotgun start. At that point, teams are just signing on the dotted line. They've already got it worked out. And Ndamukong Suh is the prized free agent, the defensive tackle, not going to be returning to Detroit. At least that's what it sounds like. I know Detroit around the combine was definitely giving strong indications that they were going to do everything they can to re-sign him. Well, it appears that they're going to do everything except give him $17 million a year and $60 million guaranteed. I just think that's stupid money for a defensive tackle. And Ndamukong Suh is a beast. He's the best defensive tackle in the NFL. I just, at that position, giving $17 million annually, I don't know that makes sense.
Yeah, and the last I heard is Miami is the front runner, and Detroit is number 2, and Detroit's really not even in competition.
Well, best of luck to the Miami Dolphins, because they're going to have to sacrifice at other positions, which are going to be in high demand and positions of importance to be able to pay that salary for the next several years, 6 years, whatever it is.
And the thing is, and I know I've said this before, it's not like the Dolphins are one player away from getting over the top and being a Super Bowl caliber team.
I do want to mention this, too. We have Dubuque Fighting Saints tickets to give away. We've got several tickets to Sunday's game against the Chicago Steel, and this is for the Mystique Casino Suite. So if you'd like to sign up for those, you can stop by the table here. That includes all of you listening here at TPC Sports Bar. Sign up. We'll just draw winners at the end. Also have a pair of tickets to the Pinnacle Combat MMA event, which is next Friday the 13th at the U.S. Cellular Center in Cedar Rapids, and we'll draw for a winner for that as well. Let's take a short break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk more sports, and we encourage you to join us if you can. TPC Sports Bar inside Mystique Casino. If you can't, tune in, of course, on the radio. I'm hoping you're listening there now. You can also watch on YouTube. Get the stream on our Twitter handle, at The Jeff Robb Show. Also find it on our Facebook page. It's The Jeff Robb Show, presented by Bud Light on AM 1490 WDBQ. How you doing, my friend? Hey, good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. How you doing? Let's do it. Yeah? I've been doing for about a day and a half. Have you really? That's awesome. How did theirs go? Did Nick Stroh last night was back? Yes. How'd it go? I hear it. You hear it. How's your back feeling today? But just make sure next time you text them, Joseph. He's been training for the last couple weeks. That's awesome. How's your mind go? Is it like all done? Good. What are you so next Saturday? Okay. Maybe. Awesome. Yeah. Craziest experience of my life. Just absolutely. We just watch or sometimes sleep and stuff. Oh, yeah. That's just it. Like, I've got all these TV shows that I want to watch. And literally, I'll end up home here and I'll just watch Heroes going on the TV. So all these TV shows that I want to watch, they're not getting watched. Yeah. Love it. It's awesome. It's great. But I can't complain. But I do want to get out of the house next Saturday. And are you going to be partaking in the St. Patty's Day festivities on Saturday? It's celebration.
I'm not doing very good with the on-air please stand by sign.
Hi, buddy. 30? Okay.
It's 5:30.
I never have a problem. Go ahead, Amanda. And we're back inside TPC Sports Bar here in Mystique. John, are you a big TV show fan?
Yes, I am.
What? Give me a couple of the shows that you watch on a weekly basis.
You know, I watch Game of Thrones. I don't.
Love Game of Thrones.
I'm always a year behind, so don't tell me anything
Okay,
because
all right.
I always buy it when it becomes available on like Amazon or whatever. House of Cards. I just started watching I think the third season. The Walking Dead. Better Call Saul because I love.
You have good taste in TV shows, my man. I watch all those.
Yeah.
So House of Cards was available to watch on Netflix. I think it was available to stream last Friday. I think it was the first day. So at least last year, I shouldn't say that because 2 years ago, the first season, I didn't get into it until like September. So it was several months later that I started watching it. But last year, I was all done with the second season of House of Cards, like by that Sunday.
Yeah.
I just binge watch it. But I got my little daughter at home now. So TV shows are kind of hard to watch. I don't know if you've been there, but I was telling Joey here, I'll like be holding my daughter as I'm watching the show and I'll start the show and then all of a sudden I'll like look down and I'll be like, oh, she looks so damn cute. And then I can't stop watching her. And then like 20 minutes will have gone by on the show and then you got to like rewatch it.
A little distraction.
So I've only knocked out one episode of House of Cards so far.
Yeah, I think I'm in the third. Actually, I heard a bad review. I read a bad review on it. And then, like I said, I'm only 3 episodes into it. I think the third season, 5 so far. So
you read a bad review on the season as a whole?
On season 3.
Well, I'll tell you what. Last season, the second season started out with a bang, and I don't want to put any, I don't want to spoil anything for anyone who hasn't seen it yet. But honestly, there should be like a statute of limitations when you can start talking about spoilers on TV shows. And if you haven't watched it in over a year,
Breaking Bad's a good example of that. I'll say to somebody, I love Breaking Bad, one of my favorite series of all time. And they're like, well, don't tell me I haven't started watching. I'm like, well, that's 7 years ago. That started out. So.
Anyways, the first episode I think got off to a little bit of a slow start, but I just love that show. So that's good.
And I just read it became available a couple weeks ago was season 4, I think it was, of Game of Thrones. The problem is there's only 10 episodes, and I go home from work and I watch 2 of them every night, and now I'm done with the season and have to wait another year to get the 5th season.
So you're not caught up on the last season that aired.
No, I'm
okay.
not.
I was just about to bring something up. I'm glad I did.
All
right. Let's talk about Iowa Hawkeye basketball here. We might actually have to pick this conversation up next hour just because I got a few things that I want to say on this. Hawkeye's playing really good basketball right now and peaking at the perfect time. They've won 5 in a row, 7 of their last 9. And that's something that is not very typical, at least last season wasn't very typical for the Iowa Hawkeyes men's basketball program, as they really faltered down the stretch, losing 7 of their last 8 games. So it's nice to see them winning games. They're winning games, quite frankly, that they should be winning. They beat Indiana. That's a team that's lost 3 of their last 4. They beat Penn State, Nebraska, and Rutgers, all bottom feeders. And I guess I'm a little skeptical to get too invested in the Hawkeyes and the success that they've had as far as projecting how far they're going to go in the NCAA tournament. But don't let that stop Dan Dockich, the ESPN commentator, who has certainly not endeared himself to the Hawkeye Nation with his comments about Adam Woodbury. He wrote an article on ESPN.com, and he listed 5 teams that are flying under the radar but ready to make some noise in the tournament. Number 3 on that list is the Iowa Hawkeyes, and here's what he writes. He says, the Hawkeyes have everything you want in a team: size, skill, and speed. Ask Big Ten players, and they will tell you that this is the most difficult matchup in the league. Iowa's inconsistency is baffling, but if the Hawkeyes relax and just play, they can reach the second weekend.
You know what the Hawkeyes do have going for them is they play to the level of the competition. So in the Big Ten tournament, in the NCAA tournament, they'll be playing better teams. I mean, they just look so much sharper. And I know Indiana has been on a losing streak, but they're probably about Iowa's level. And they just look so much sharper. They passed the ball better. They handled it better. They didn't kick it around the floor. They just look better against better teams.
That Illinois win was solid. I mean, that was a solid win against the team in Illinois who's playing pretty good basketball right now. Joe Lunardi currently has Iowa as a 7 seed playing Oregon in the East bracket in Omaha. Don't look too much into the matchups and whatnot, but the fact that he's got him as a 7 seed now this week, time last week, he had Iowa as a 9 seed. Right, so they're constantly moving up. The type of team that the Hawkeyes don't want to play, or that I would be worried about if I'm a Hawkeye fan, a speedy team that can run an effective full court press and generate turnovers. I think that's the kind of team. You know, you look at the Minnesota Gophers in that game against Minnesota, a team that could force those turnovers and kind of turn it into an ugly game. That's the kind of team that the Hawkeyes have to worry about.
Yeah, you know, that Minnesota game, they really looked like they made Iowa on defense look like they were parking cones because they just dribbled the ball around them.
Yeah, Wisconsin Badgers with the Gophers, that same Minnesota team at the bar in Minneapolis last night, and won the Big Ten regular season title. Lunardi has the Badgers as a 2 seed in the same bracket as Kentucky. So I think if you're a Wisconsin fan, you'd probably hope that doesn't work out that way, although you really can't look too far ahead in the bracket. The Badgers are 27-3 on the season with losses to Duke, Maryland, and Rutgers. I was looking at this, and now I vaguely remember them losing to Rutgers. Yeah. How the hell did Wisconsin lose to Rutgers? That's Rutgers' only Big Ten win in the entire season.
Yeah, you know, I do remember watching the very end of that game, and you know, it was one of those jaw droppers. But yeah, when we say, you know, Maryland, it's like, yeah, I can see that, or Louisville, or whatever. But yeah, Rutgers.
That's a puzzling one. Big weekend for the Big Ten tournament seeding, because Iowa could enter the Big Ten tournament as the 3 seed, or they could be as low as the 6 seed. So some big games here tomorrow and Sunday going to determine quite a bit as far as the upper tier of the Big Ten tournament, at least the seeds. Northwestern is at Iowa tomorrow. That's an 11 a.m. tip on Big Ten Network. Michigan State is at Indiana, 11 a.m. on ESPN. Rutgers at Michigan at 1:15. Illinois is at Purdue at 3:30 on Sunday. Penn State and Minnesota is at noon on the Big Ten Network, and Wisconsin and Ohio State going to play at 3:30. Maryland and Nebraska at 6:30. But again, right now, Iowa at 11-6 in the conference is grouped right with Ohio State, Michigan State, and Purdue. By the way, that Purdue Boilermakers team was another one of those 5 teams that Dan Dockich has listed as a scary team that might not make the top 25. Sure. Or crack the top 25, but they're going to make the tournament, and they're going to be a deadly team to watch in the tournament. So you got to watch out for the Purdue Boilermakers. They got a lot of size. They got a lot of size on that team, especially their front court, and they can make some noise in the tournament as well. So, and you know, Dan Dockich might be a little bit partial to the Big Ten, being that he played in the Big Ten. I think he's got a kid playing in the Big Ten, and he's a commentator for Big Ten games.
Yeah, so a little bit biased.
But again, that's the Iowa Hawkeyes playing good basketball right now, and definitely fun to watch. And they're going to be in the NCAA men's basketball tournament. It's just a matter of how high of a seed they can get. Let's take a short break here. We got the 6-pack at 6 coming up, presented by Bud Light. Again, in hour number 2 at 6:25, Dubuque Fighting Saints team president Dan Lev going to be stopping by. Also coming up towards the end of the show, we'll touch on some Major League Baseball talkers that I wanted to get to last week that we didn't have an opportunity to. So we'll do that to wrap up the show. It's the Jeff Robb Show. Again, we're live at TPC Sports Bar inside Mystique Casino on AM 1490 WDBQ.
Please stand by.
That's pretty good. Can't imagine a one-way ticket from Vegas is probably cheap either, you know? Are you guys going soon? Probably you guys do your annual spring trip there. 2 weeks. Oh, cool. Yeah, you got the Arizona trip coming up. Here. 30 seconds. Okay.
I am holding that.
It's such a weird time to get. Like most people go 30 seconds, 10 seconds, you're like 20, 15. Amanda, go ahead and play it. Okay. And we're back inside TPC Sports Bar here at Mystique Casino. It's the Jeff Robb Show, presented by Bud Light. And we've got Dan Lev coming up, as I mentioned, at about 6:25. Right now we've got the six-pack at 6. And these are 6 different topics that my co-host John Atkinson brings to the table and wants to discuss.
All right, and we're going to start out with number 1, men's basketball. We're talking about Kentucky's men's basketball team is currently number 1. Is a perfect 30-0. They play Florida tomorrow and potentially 3 more games in the SEC tournament. Will a perfect record going into the NCAA tournament help or hurt their tournament chances?
You know, I refuse to believe that losing helps the team.
Yeah.
I can't get on board with that. Battle tested is key, but you can be battle tested and not lose games.
And Kentucky has this year.
Yeah. If anything, I think not losing any games will help their confidence, and that's a good thing. It's not good to be cocky. It's good to be confident, and they have been battle tested. They have 7 games decided by less than 10 points, including a double overtime game at Texas A&M and an overtime game at Mississippi. I don't know that you need more than that. I mean, again, out of the 30, they've had 23 double-digit wins and 7 single-digit and even some overtime wins, and I think that's plenty. Admittedly, I've watched very little Kentucky basketball this season. I just have. I don't know. It just hasn't worked out with my schedule. I've been watching other stuff. I'm more of a Big Ten basketball guy, so if there's an SEC game going on at the same time as a Big Ten game, I'll choose the Big Ten game over the SEC game. But what I have seen has been very, very impressive. And the thing about Kentucky that makes them really good and almost a cinch, in my opinion, to get to the national championship game is the fact that they have really, really good defense.
Yeah.
They play really good defense, and that's the one constant, that projects well in the NCAA tournament. We look at the Wisconsin Badgers, bring this to a Big Ten perspective. Everybody gives Bo Ryan so much credit for the program that he's built at Wisconsin, and rightfully so. Bo Ryan has really a system that's built on two things. Number one is to not turn the ball over. Number two is to not foul. Don't give up free throws. Don't turn the ball over and in turn give up free points on the offensive end for the other team. And they do a great job of that. And Calipari has his own system that he's been implementing in Kentucky, and it's been working really well for him. And I don't think I can see a team beating this Kentucky team right now.
Yeah, and it gets to a point when you talk about them getting a loss, and that would help them, get the perfect record off the slate. But it gets to the point now, this far in the season at 30-0, winning a national championship and being undefeated are almost the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you just have to go. And I watched Kentucky against Georgia. I think it was maybe Tuesday night or something they were on, and I said it earlier this year. First time I watched them, they're just suffocating.
Yeah.
I mean, in Georgia actually, I think was up by 8 points maybe in the fourth quarter, and Kentucky ended up winning by 7. So
I mean, the only advantage I could see to losing a game would be to learn how to bounce back from it. But guess what? When you get to the NCAA men's basketball tournament and you lose, you're done.
No bouncing back from that.
Right.
So yeah, they're you know what? And I was just about ready to say they're a fun team to watch. And really, they're not really a fun team to watch. But they're a very good basketball team.
They are. They're really, really fundamentally sound on both ends of the court for the most part. And again, this is basing this off of watching very little of their games, but also reading about them occasionally. And I don't know. Kentucky is going to be the hardest team to beat that I could see going into this tournament that we've seen in years. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
this is just a flat-out dominating team. We've seen a lot of number ones. I mean, number one overalls going into the tournament that looked like a really good team, but nothing this dominant in years.
And, it's been since 1976, the Indiana, Bobby Knight's Indiana team was the last undefeated team. I found that to be surprising. And I think going into the tournament, there's been maybe since 76, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 times teams have gone into the tournament undefeated, but they've lost in the tournament somewhere along the line. So that'll be an interesting thing to watch. Jeff, who do you think is the new face of the Major League Baseball?
I mean, the obvious answer is Mike Trout, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's everything that Major League Baseball, 5-tool player, young, athletic. And I would have to say Mike Trout, number one. Who else joins him in that conversation is very debatable.
Yeah.
I don't know. Pitching perspective, maybe your Dodgers, Clayton Kershaw. But as far as positional players, I saw your list, and I'll let you read it off here in a second. One name that I wanted to add to that, Miguel Cabrera. I mean, is he too controversial to be the face of Major League Baseball, the unofficial face of Major League Baseball?
No, not really. I mean, he seems like he's kind of quiet. Maybe that knocks him down a notch. And actually, I asked this question to quite a few people this week, and I got some different answers. Madison Bumgarner, who was fresh off the World Series last year, we had one of the most incredible World Series ever for a pitcher. That was something somebody mentioned. Another giant, Buster Posey.
Yep.
I think they did a national poll, and of course, it's one of those things you vote on. I think it was on ESPN or something like that, and Buster Posey ended up winning that.
Hey, does anybody here want to go to a Dubuque Fighting Saints game tonight? Anybody? No? Well, here's the thing. We got Dan Lev stopping by here in a little bit. I've got these 4 tickets I just completely forgot about. And I think Dan will kill me if he stops by here and he sees tickets for tonight's game going to waste. So, here. There you go. Even if you don't want to go, find a home for them. There you go. All right. Sorry to interrupt. We'll get back to the now what do we have? What's that? Are those more tickets to give away?
No.
Oh.
Whose name's on there, Jeff?
All right, yours.
Don't
Sorry.
give my
I thought you just
stuff
said give it away. I thought I overheard that. So, okay. We don't have any. Well, we do have more stuff to give away. We've got the Dubuque Fighting Saints tickets. If you guys want to sign up, we've got tickets into the Mystique Casino suite for Sunday's Dubuque Fighting Saints game. It includes all you can eat and stuff. So if you want to get signed up for that, right over here, all we need is a first and last name or a nickname. You got to be present to win. We'll draw for a winner here in a little bit. Sorry to interrupt, John. So you were saying we were talking about the face of Major League Baseball. Mike Trout, I think, is probably our consensus pick for who that is. Madison Bumgarner, the way he performed in the postseason last year, certainly has to be in the discussion, at least from a pitcher's perspective. Clayton Kershaw, I think maybe isn't a lock because of his performance in the postseason or lack thereof, right? I mean, for as well as Madison Bumgarner's done in the postseason, right, Clayton Kershaw hasn't pooped the bed. But he hasn't been the shutdown ace that Madison Bumgarner was. Yeah,
Madison Bumgarner, like I said, in the World Series and the playoffs, a lot of people probably didn't know who he was. He has kind of a funny name, and that's all they remember about him until the World Series, and he was just awesome. And Clayton Kershaw, is now a 3-time Cy Young Award winner, was the MVP in the National League last year, but his postseason has something to be proved upon.
You mentioned, or I saw on your list, Andrew McCutchen.
Yes.
Andrew McCutchen's in the conversation, too.
You know why I think of Andrew McCutchen?
Why?
Because he looks like a defensive back.
He does.
With his dreadlocks and his body build and everything.
Yeah, like you're saying if Andrew McCutchen and Charles Tillman are standing next to each other at Geno's East in Chicago, you wouldn't be able to tell them.
Unless they're wearing their jerseys with their numbers on, I wouldn't be able to tell them apart.
Yeah, McCutchen's a great baseball player, and I tell you what, it's good. When I grew up, I don't remember Pittsburgh. I was not alive when Pittsburgh had a really good baseball team.
Yeah.
So my entire life watching baseball, Pittsburgh's always had some pretty horrible teams. I mean, and so it's fun to watch them now do well, and they're one of those teams. Like being a Twins fan. I was never against any of the teams in the NL Central. I never had really strong feelings either way about any of those teams. So it is fun to watch the Pittsburgh Pirates do well, and I know Cubs fans are probably going to disagree with me on that one. Yeah. But the Cubbies, we'll get into baseball talk here a little bit later in the hour.
Okay,
ladies, just first and last name is all we need. I promise.
So I'm right here in the Cub hat.
Yep.
Okay, here's the list of the top. I forgot what this question was all about. Here's a question of the top unrestricted free agents and Bill Polian's grade on those. Let's talk about some of them.
Okay. Give me a player.
We talked about Sue earlier.
Okay, Ndamukong Suh.
He deserves the A+.
Yeah, he's an A+ free agent, definitely. Sounds like he's going to get $17 million per year and $60 million guaranteed. And I don't think any defensive tackle is worth that much money. Certainly, if there was a defensive tackle, it would be him that would be worth that. I know a defensive tackle. I'm not trying to devalue the position. I just feel like, in a day and age when the pass rush is obviously so important, it is great to generate a pass rush up the middle. In fact, that's huge if you can get a pass rush from your defensive tackle. But I don't know that $17 million, man, that's so much money. But, here's the thing. The salary cap keeps going up, and this is also something I suppose we should keep in mind. Salary cap keeps going up as the NFL continues to make more money. Teams are making more money, and the cap keeps getting higher. So you're going to see players, veterans, get more money. And also you got to remember the rookie wage scale, too, now being in effect. So these contracts for the veterans continue to go up. But, man, it's so much money. $17 million, $60 guaranteed for a defensive tackle.
Yeah, and the thing is there is a cap, and when you tie up $17 million of the cap in one player, I mean, if it's a quarterback, sure, but a defensive lineman, even though Sue is great, he's dirty. You ever hear that about him?
Oh,
that he's dirty.
No, not at all. No, and here's the thing about Ndamukong Suh. So I'm not saying that there's another position or another player that's worthy of that much money on the defensive side of the ball, one player. But give me an Ndamukong Suh or two solid starters. I'll take the two solid starters if I have a choice.
Absolutely.
Try to fill two holes.
Yep, that's a good play. How about DeMarco Murray? He gets an A.
DeMarco Murray, the only question I have about him, and I think this is what's holding Dallas back from maybe giving him the contract he desires, is his durability. His durability has got to be a huge concern. It's a big concern for me, at least. No doubt when he's on the field, he produces. Ran it behind one of the better offensive lines that we've seen in really the last 5 years, probably last year in Dallas. And I know that DeMarco Murray wants to go back to Dallas. He wants to play behind that offensive line for years to come, wants to get paid, wants to play for the Dallas Cowboys. This thing is kind of trending towards he's probably going to get money from some other team and end up signing somewhere else. But whoever signs him to a contract, you better watch out on the guaranteed money. I would give him more money than I normally would in incentives or escalators to hit certain yard marks, certain games played to inflate the contract than I would give him that money up front, that guaranteed money. I'd be really concerned about that. But he's so productive when he's on the field. Obviously, he's an A free agent.
Yeah, and he had over 450 touches between running the ball and receiving the ball. And, I mean, it's been a long history. I think the magic number is like 375, and there's a long history of players, running backs, that they get past that number, and in their follow-up season takes a step back. How about former Packer now, Randall Cobb?
Randall Cobb, I think Randall Cobb is going to get the word is he's going to be looking at $10 to $12 million a year on free agency. And I think, if anything, I'd defer to you to give me the answer on this. The one thing I'll say about this is, and I think Randall Cobb is a playmaker. I really do. But how many times have we seen a wide receiver put up really good numbers consistently with an all-pro quarterback throwing the ball to them, go to a team that doesn't have a quarterback situation, and do absolutely nothing? And this is not to say that the wide receiver isn't as good as we thought he was going to be, but it just accentuates the point that the quarterback makes the wide receiver. The wide receiver very rarely makes the quarterback that much better. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, he's one weapon amongst a bunch of weapons. You got Eddie Lacy, Aaron Rodgers, Jordy Nelson. So, yeah, I mean, that helps him out there, absolutely. If he goes to Oakland, which is a popular belief, that's where he's going to end up. He's going to team back up with former Packers.
Do you feel like Randall Cobb, though, going to like an Oakland or going to a Jacksonville, being the number one wide receiver, can win consistently on the outside and be a deep threat, mid-level to deep threat guy?
If he's got Derek Carr throwing to him, he could. I mean,
do you feel physically that he's able to win against the bigger physical cornerbacks that are going to be, because he wherever he goes, he's the number one guy,
right? And
he'll be the number one guy for the first time in his entire career. And that's not to say that when they played the Patriots, for instance, that Darrelle Revis was never lined up on him, but he is now going to be the focal point of defenses for a week. Do you feel like he's going to be able to produce the same way he did this year?
If he's asked to stretch the field, I don't know if he can. I don't know if he's going to be a straight down the sideline wide receiver like a Jordy Nelson does. Cobb's always played the slot. Everything he's done is, the 15 yards.
The intermediate routes.
And then he turns it into a 50-yard.
And that's who he is. Yeah.
That's really who he is. If they're looking for him to be that sideline receiver, I'm not sure he's going to work out that way. You mentioned Darrelle Revis. He's on the list. He gets a grade.
Yeah, I mean, he went to New England last year on kind of a one-year prove-it deal after a down year in Tampa Bay by Darrelle Revis standards, and he proved that he's still a shutdown corner, and he's going to get paid a bunch of money and probably sign a multi-year contract, and he's going to cash in, and rightfully so, because he's proven that he still has it, and it's still Revis Island when he's on the field. Yeah,
it kind of surprised me that he's only 29 years old. I thought he was probably in his early 30s, 31, 32. I don't know what he'll be when the season starts next year.
And we've seen this, with Champ Bailey and some others. If they take care of their body, they can play, well into their 30s at a very high level. Aeneas Williams, another guy that comes to mind.
Okay, well, let's pick one more. How about Devin McCourty?
Devin McCourty, let's see here. What do I have my notes on Devin McCourty? I'm trying to find. Oh, there we go. And we got more than a few left, and we got time to kill. So we can just go down the list. Devin McCourty, converted cornerback, who was a first-round pick. He's now one of the best free safeties in the game. He converted from cornerback, I should say. Now one of the best free safeties in the game. He's got everything you're looking for in a free safety, and he's going to sign a big deal. And I don't completely write him off as not re-signing with New England. I know they didn't franchise him, and now there's the speculation that he's definitely not going back. I don't know that I would go that far, but whoever gets him is going to get a really, really nice safety to put in their backfield. And the safety position, we talk about running backs getting devalued in certain other positions. Yep. The safety position is one that's actually gone up in value and is very important now at this day and age with teams passing the ball as frequently as they do.
That's absolutely right. Everybody knows it's a quarterback's league. So if you don't have that quarterback, you got to have a defense that can stop a quarterback like that.
Another guy you put out here was Jerry Hughes, defensive end, linebacker, edge rusher from the Buffalo Bills. Jerry, I've always liked Jerry Hughes. I watched him play in a bowl game at TCU, and he was a late bloomer as far as in terms of production at the NFL level. His first 2 seasons in Indianapolis really didn't do too much at all, and he's a former first-round pick. Then in his 3rd season, he recorded 4 sacks and then was subsequently traded to Buffalo, where he put up 10 sacks in 2013, 9.5 last year. He also had 5 forced fumbles the last 2 years combined. He's a playmaker on the edge, and I'll tell you what, this is one of those guys who's going to get paid because he's at a premium position, but I really think Jerry Hughes is going to have a nice career wherever he lands and really produce for the team who signs him.
Yeah, and he's fairly young, 26 years old. He was the first-round draft choice. He's 31st overall.
I haven't heard his name floated around with the Chicago Bears at all, but he just makes a ton of sense there. And I know a lot of the mock drafts, a lot of the experts have the Bears going after an edge rusher with their first-round pick. But wouldn't it be nice to go get Jerry Hughes in free agency, spend some money on him because they've got the cap space to do that, and then use that first-round pick on Danny Shelton, the defensive tackle, to fill up the middle there in that 3-4 Vic Fangio defense they're going to be running, or the 4-3 under, which is basically a 3-4, except that they just shade the guard a little bit differently. So I really think that that Jerry Hughes would make a lot of sense in Buffalo or in Chicago. I haven't even heard that as a possibility, but he's going to go somewhere and he's going to get cash in and I think produce at the same time.
Yeah, and the Bears defense, they need help at every level, and they're not going to be able to get it all through the draft. They're not going to be able to get it all through free agency. So they're going to have to kind of piece things together. How about Jeremy Maclin?
Jeremy Maclin, I've never thought of him as a dynamic receiver. I just never have. You know what I mean? I'm not going to say he's a bust because he certainly has produced more than that label, than he would deserve for that label. But I look at him as a good playmaker. I just don't look at him as like really dynamic. You know what I mean? Am I crazy for saying that?
One of those guys, he gets his yards, but they're maybe
he does, and he's good. I just don't look at him as like a dynamic, one of the elite wide receivers in the NFL.
Right, and he had kind of a career year last year after Deshaun Jackson left Philadelphia. He became kind of the primary receiver. But again, if you go to a team that doesn't have somebody to throw to,
no, he would definitely be one of those guys where if he goes to a team who doesn't have a solid quarterback situation, he's not going to create too much for himself. And I guess I would put him in line with like a rich man Greg Jennings. Sure. You know what I mean? In that, Greg went to Minnesota, after having all these productive years at Green Bay. Now, granted, Greg was in toward the end of his career, and we all knew that. And he's probably in his last year in Minnesota, I think, honestly, with his cap hit number. But, I think Maclin, first of all, I don't think he's leaving Philadelphia. I think they're gonna find a way to get Maclin back in there. But he's a guy who needs a stable quarterback situation, and a guy to get him the ball in order to put up the numbers he did last year.
And here's a guy that.
And by the way, he did it with Mark Sanchez and Nick Foles, so it's not like it's not like he had an amazing quarterback throwing him the ball. So we do have to give fairness to conversation to Jeremy Maclin on that one. But I've just never looked at him in the same conversation as the Calvin Johnsons. Sure. And, some of the elite wide receivers in the NFL.
Yeah, he had over 1,300 yards receiving last year.
He did.
Here's a guy I put on the list because I know you'd like to probably see him in a Viking uniform is Mike Iupati.
Mike Iupati, he's a mauler in the run game. The more I read about this guy, though, the less enchanted I am with him being in Minnesota. Yeah, he's a real liability in the passing game. He's a really big guy. And, of course, he would complement, Adrian Peterson and the Vikings' power run game really well with Norv Turner. But the fact that he's a liability in the passing game also kind of scares me because if Adrian Peterson doesn't work out and they end up having to trade him, I think that's really going to kind of change the dynamic of the Vikings offense as we saw last year. They did bang it a little bit with Asiata and Jerick McKinnon, but as far as getting a vertical passing game going, asking Teddy to do the 5 and 7-step drops, you want some good pass protection, especially in the interior of that offensive line. And that does kind of scare me, especially when you consider the kind of money that he's probably going to command. You'd like a complete player for the kind of money that he's probably going to sign for. A guy I also wanted to bring up was Terrence Knighton, who's on your list too, the defensive tackle. One of the best nose tackles in the NFL. Another guy that would be a good fit in the Chicago Bears uniform. Again, kind of falling along the lines of, address a position of need in free agency for the Bears so that you can draft a position of need early on in the draft. And that's kind of the same theory here with Terrence Knighton. Knighton's one of those nose tackles who can play the zero technique right over the top of the center, which you see in a 3-4, or he can play the technique, or the one technique. He can be the nose in a 4-3, where he plays between the guard and the center. So he can play both.
And this time next week, we might know where a lot of these guys end up.
Yeah, it's going to be so much fun. I wish free agency started on a Friday. That would be great.
That would be. We could watch the ticker as we did the show.
All right, we got to kind of just blow through these last couple here.
What are some of the early storylines from Major League Baseball?
I got to go with Cubs expectations. They're very high right now, highest they've been in over a decade. The Chicago White Sox rotation has 3 power pitchers and a lineup that features Abreu, Adam LaRoche, who they signed, who's had a really nice career, especially lately in Washington. Adam Eaton and Melky Cabrera, I think they're going to be able to produce runs. They've got 3 pitchers who should get at least 1 K per inning and average that. And if they can fill out the rest of that rotation, Dave Robertson can live up to that contract that they signed him. Quite frankly, it was a ridiculous contract, I think. If he can live up to that as a closer for them, they should be a really tough team to beat, but it's certainly something to watch, at least locally here in the Tri-States. And Alex Rodriguez, man, it's an intriguing storyline. The Yankees really need A-Rod to step up. They're relying on a 39-year-old, and I think they're too dependent on him, quite frankly. For as much money as the Yankees have invested in their team, the fact that they have such huge question marks at like 3, 4, 5 spot in their lineup is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. And I'm going to throw one out there. The Washington Nationals pitching staff. It's been a long time since you had a 5-man pitching staff this deep with Scherzer and Strasburg and Zimmerman and Gonzalez and Pfister. So
I know, and we thought that they were going to trade. They were going to make some moves to trade some of these guys out of there once they got Scherzer. They didn't do that. And you're right. It is one of the deepest rotations I can think of in the last several years.
Yep. So we're less than a month away from opening day. We're going to move on to number 5 this week. Tuscany and Albany State cheerleaders were sent home after fighting at the SIAC tournament. Would this action be more fun than the T-shirt cannons or trampoline slam dunk shows?
I think there's a balance you have to find. I think a lot of halftime shows and in-game entertainment, when you talk about like trampoline stuff, can be kind of lame. But it definitely pales in comparison to the superhero trivia that we are going to have Sunday at the Dubuque Fighting Saints game that Chris Farber and I will be executing during the first period intermission. So make sure you see that. Kind of a quick tease here as we got Dan Lev ready to come over here and talk to us in the second segment of this hour. But I'm not going to I'm not going to go on the radio and condone reckless violence either.
As long as nobody gets hurt, cheerleaders fighting is awesome. Okay.
I know I am the guy that watches, though, the videos of, like, fans fighting fans. Like there was that one I put on Facebook of the Wild and Avalanche fans getting into it last weekend. And this Wild fan, this lady, sucker punched this guy in the back of the head. The guy subsequently, though, the Avs fan turned around and violently charged after and started throwing punches at a woman. So that didn't reflect well for the city of Denver.
I watched that video, and it came to mind that there's participants, instigators, and voice of reason in all these fan fights. Which one do you think you would be? It would depend on the situation.
I've actually been all 3 in my life, and the less beer I drink in public, and the older I get, I've definitely progressed to the voice of reason. Yeah. But there was a time when I would go to college ID day at the Metrodome for the Twins, where I probably would have been one of the other 2. It's at this point I just look and I just shake my head, especially when you've got grown adults. I mean, people in their 40s and 50s, throwing down in the parking lot because someone said their team sucked. I mean, it's just grow up.
And being a Dodger fan, sometimes that goes to the extreme. I mean,
I know you guys
loss of life, between the Giants and Dodgers, and that doesn't make it fun. So we talk about our favorite TV shows. I kind of recast them, and we'll go through and see what you think. The Walking Dead, I picked Mike Krzyzewski of Duke.
Rick Grimes, I love it. As you mentioned here, you got on your notes, he's just a straight shooter, steady, tough when he needs to be. I love it. I think that's a very, very good. In fact, every single one of these, I think you did an A+ job on. By the way,
the second one, House of Cards. I mean, President Frank Underwood. This was absolutely a no-brainer. I don't know what this had to be.
Bill Belichick. I love it. I love it. You're absolutely right. Crafty, plotting, and he'll go to any length to succeed. Yep. You nailed it.
And Game of Thrones, Tyrion Lannister, Johnny Manziel.
Yeah, I mean, outside of the stature, obviously, in comparison to his peers, there's that, and of course, he's doing anything he can to get respect.
Okay, and one more. Better Call Saul. Jimmy McGill, also known as Saul Goodman. Bear safety Chris Connie. He's probably a good ball player, but at the end, somebody always knocks him on his butt, and they run right over top of him.
I don't even know that I would go as far as to say I think he's a good ball player. He has made some ridiculous plays. We've talked about it before on this show. He'll make some of the most ridiculous, type plays, and then after that, he'll like go out there and make just 10 completely boneheaded plays.
It's always the last thing you remember of a Bears loss is Chris Connie laying on his butt and somebody running over him.
Yep. All right, great job on the six-pack at 6 again, presented by our friends at Bud Light. We're going to take a short break. We're going to come back. Dan Lev, the Dubuque Fighting Saints team president, joins us next. We're live at TPC Sports Bar, Mystique Casino. It's the Jeff Robb Show on AM 1490 WDBQ.
Please stand by.
NASCAR, huh? Hey, how are you doing? So he's acquitted, right?
Kyle Busch? Stand by.
How you doing, buddy? Good to see you. I really did. You know what? NASCAR's like every other sport now, though. They don't wait for a big process, actually. So the NFL, look at Adrian Peterson. That hasn't been around for years in sports. How does that public perception so favorably? Well, I don't know, man. Not the NFL, certainly. Look at Adrian Peterson. Well, that's a different situation. We're talking about players who. And I'm saying this has been around in sports. I don't know the whole Kurt Busch story. He's the one. I'm good. But that's the one that said that his wife was like a CIA, right? Like a CIA agent or something like that.
Yeah, she had trained killer.
A trained killer assassin,
Yeah, you can't let him behind the wheel.
Yeah, I mean, like I want to go driving a couple hundred miles an hour around this Kurt Busch. Are you big racing fan? Huh? Yeah. Yeah, they announced. I didn't know 2 players made it to Michigan Tech. Yeah. Hi, buddy. Hang on a second. Hey, so do you guys have in your ownership group, the company owns you guys, or the I don't know what they're called. What's the name of the company? There you go. One of the main guys for them, is he a minority owner or was a minority owner? Just a couple weeks ago? Wow. They sell the rest of the label, the owner now, or someone else? Wow. Crazy. Where's he from? Is he from the Twin Cities? Minnesota. Hinkley, Hibbing, Lake Mille Lacs, Duluth. Okay, yeah. Ely.
I've been to all those places.
Have you really?
Ely?
Yeah, Ely's great.
Like familiar?
Actually, I've had horrible luck catching fish in Ely.
It's a big lake. We fished 4 or 5 different times up there.
I think we're on like Rainy Lake or something like that. Probably 5 Rainy Lakes.
Yeah. I think Minnesota has like 17 rice lakes.
Yeah, Rice Lake's a big one.
Mud Lake.
How much time we got left? Ben started. I want to thank you for tuning in. Those of you listening on AM 1490 WDBQ. Also, you can catch the YouTube stream, not just tonight, but every show we will have streamed on YouTube. Catch the link on our Facebook page, Jeff Robb Show, and then also on our Twitter feed as well. We've got Dubuque Fighting Saints president Dan Lev returning. Dan, welcome back. And once again, I'm going to mention this as I did last week, that you come here dressed up to really put things into perspective for our friends on YouTube. You can definitely see who has the nicer wardrobe.
Well, listen, I hear that there's an internet audience, and I'm going to get dressed up for it right away. And I should point out right at the top here, I come bearing gifts. I mean, last week we talked about Jeff welcoming his daughter into the world.
Yeah.
And so this evening, here it is, the Dubuque Fighting Saints onesie.
I love it. Oh,
there it is.
That's so cute.
Outstanding.
That's awesome. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Future prospect. That's
Future
awesome.
prospect.
That is
That's
sweet. Cool. I tell you what, I'm going to change her into it when I get home. You know what? I'm going to be on diaper duty the minute I walk in the door. That's how it goes, you know.
That's outstanding. And it will last probably about an hour, maybe an hour before she needs to be changed again.
That's great. Well, I appreciate it, buddy. I really do. Dubuque Fighting Saints, I tell you what, before we look ahead to this weekend, because you guys are home tonight against the Green Bay Gamblers and then got a home-and-home series against the Chicago Steel this weekend. Before we look ahead to those games, take us back to last weekend and how the Fighting Saints fared against Bloomington and Waterloo.
Well, big win Friday night, victory over Bloomington, 5-2. The team came out fired up to be at home. Played. It was a very physical game against Bloomington. Lit up the penalty minutes on each side of the scoreboard, but came away with a 5-2 victory. Saturday night, Waterloo came in and shut us down. Terrific performance from the Waterloo Blackhawks. Ultimately defeated the Fighting Saints 5-3. So a split last weekend. We emerged from February having won 5 of our 9 games. It was not an easy schedule during the month of February. And now the schedule, the grueling part continues. 3-game weekend starting tonight through Sunday. Next weekend, another 3 games against teams like Madison that pops up on our schedule here coming up. I shouldn't say Madison here over the next 2 weeks, but obviously Green Bay and Chicago play a prominent role this weekend, and then next weekend, Green Bay is back in town, and we have a home-and-home against the Green Bay Gamblers. So, tough part of the schedule, and a new look Fighting Saints after Monday's trade deadline as well.
Yeah, and the Fighting Saints acquired a couple of players earlier this week, and at least one of the acquisitions is a true family affair.
It is. It absolutely is. That's Hayden Shaw. He's the son of our head coach, Matt Shaw, and regardless of the last name, here's a guy you want on your team, a defenseman with extremely good offensive capabilities. So he's a guy that we can plug into the power play at the point and become extremely dangerous offensively. Not that our team isn't. Right now, we've actually performed very well on the power play here over the last month. But Hayden Shaw is an upgrade defensively for us. And then Robbie Jackson, a forward from the Chicago Steel, committed to St. Cloud State. Robbie Jackson joins our lineup. He's a dynamic forward, a guy who seems to score a point every game he plays. In fact, in 22 games, he scored 22 points. So a point-per-game kind of guy. He makes his teammates on his line a little bit better. And those are 2 key pieces that we believe have improved our club here at the trade deadline. We watched Youngstown improve their club. We watched Muskegon do the same. Cedar Rapids sat back. They're going with what they have the rest of the season. But in the 4-team race in the Eastern Conference, these were 2 key acquisitions, and we'll obviously see how they play out here over the next 6 weeks.
Do you know, have you talked to Coach Shaw, where does Jackson fit? Which line is he going to be playing with tonight?
Robbie Jackson tonight will be on the line with Jacob Benson and Brian Bowen. Brian Bowen was the leading scorer for the Green Bay Gamblers before he was traded to Dubuque. So really 3 significant moves that we made here down the stretch of the trade deadline, adding Brian Bowen, adding Hayden Shaw, the defenseman, and adding Robbie Jackson. So Jackson comes in. He'll skate with Jacob Benson, who will be a teammate at St. Cloud State, and he'll also skate with Brian Bowen. So those 3 should be a great line. And as a result, you have Brett Bowen, our leading scorer. So Brett Bowen are at the top, near the top of our scoring chart. Brett Bowen will skate with the Smith brothers. So you have Smith,
Nice.
Bowen. Talk about high intensity. There's going to be a lot of shots taken when those guys are on the ice. Nose for the puck, always thinking about putting it in the back of the net.
Well, hopefully you guys can get immediate returns on those trades, because this weekend is really a great opportunity to creep closer to Cedar Rapids and Youngstown the first and second place teams in the Eastern Conference. Also put some distance between the Fighting Saints and fourth place Muskegon, who's only 1 point behind. But the Fighting Saints do have 2 games at hand.
We do, and the schedule is in our favor from that standpoint. We have games in hand against the teams in front of us in the standings. Right now, Youngstown is on a 10-game winning streak, so they're going to be tough to catch if they continue to play at this clip, and obviously they'll come back to earth at some point. Their schedule gets a lot more difficult over the next 6 games. But as you point out, right now we're going to play some teams that aren't in the playoff mix, and as we all know, those can be the most dangerous types of teams this time of year, but it definitely comes at the right time for us. We'll play Green Bay tonight. We'll play Chicago Saturday and Sunday. Next weekend, we'll play Waterloo out of the playoffs. And then we'll play Green Bay for a pair. So it's good to see this time of year as our team tries to gel. Let's play some of those teams that are a little bit lower in the standings and see how we fare. We've played every other team up in the standings here over the last month.
Real quickly before you get to your next question, how many teams, I feel embarrassed not knowing this, but how many teams make the playoffs? How does the USHL playoff system work?
And that's okay that you ask because it has changed here in the last few years.
Okay.
And it has kind of leveled out. 4 teams from each conference make the playoffs. So we'll jump in with 4 teams from the West and 4 teams from the East. They'll obviously battle first place versus fourth place, third place versus second place in the conference semifinals, then move on to the conference finals. And ultimately, the winners of each conference final will play in the Clark Cup final. It could extend all the way to the Wednesday before Memorial Day. That would be the last possible. And our head coach, Matt Shaw, likes to say, you're playing well when you show up to the rink in shorts. Things are going well when you have a chance to play wiffle ball after practice.
So, again, I'm going to cut you off here before you ask your next one. I haven't looked at the standings beyond. This is good to know now. I haven't looked beyond Muskegon, who's just below you guys. What's the difference between where the Fighting Saints are now, where you guys are now, and 5th place? Is there some comfort level there?
There's a drop.
Okay, so cushion.
There's some cushion, and it definitely creates a certain comfort level. Every night this time of year is important. Obviously, you're trying to play towards the playoffs, but it does allow a team to breathe a little bit and not feel like every night is a must-win. We know that we're going to get every team's best shot because Dubuque has been fortunate to make the playoffs the last 4 years, won a couple cups. When they come into our building, as Green Bay does tonight, they want to play spoiler, and they want to beat us. But we need to learn to match that intensity. I think last Saturday night, Waterloo outplayed us. A combination of Waterloo playing really well, and we didn't play our best game. So I'd be very surprised if tonight we don't come out with a terrific effort following up on that game, and also knowing that there is a little bit of comfort as it relates to the playoffs, but we want home ice advantage. There's no question that we want home ice advantage. We played so well at the Mystique Community Ice Center, the most home wins in the USHL in the last 5 seasons.
You guys got the biggest goal differential here this season.
We do. And then the second reason, we're still in it for the Anderson Cup right now, particularly with the 2 games in hand. That's still a possibility for us. So we'd love to win the Anderson Cup, get home ice throughout the playoffs as a bonus, and win the regular season trophy. Is it likely? We'll see. Right now, Sioux City has the advantage out west. The East seems to be the stronger conference, so I wouldn't be surprised if a Western Conference team, Sioux City or Tri-City, walks away with it this year. But with these last 15 games, we're going to learn a little bit more about the Dubuque Fighting Saints and hopefully position ourselves to where we're peaking heading into the playoffs.
Dubuque Fighting Saints president Dan Lev here joining us at TPC Sports Bar at Mystique Casino. John, you got another question?
Yeah, Dan, this Sunday afternoon is Superhero Sunday.
So I hear it's going to be outstanding. And I hear there's some trivia being written by Jeff Robb Show.
Now, Chris is taking it, and honestly, you would probably prefer that I did it because I'm not a great superhero mind at all. Chris is a comic book nerd. Don't let him fool you. So, I don't think he's going to pull any punches either. I think the superhero trivia is going to be pretty difficult.
So it's going to be outstanding. First of all, we have Superhero Sunday with Sister Station Y105.
Yeah.
So that's going to be outstanding. The superhero trivia, different contests during the course of the game. Batman will be in attendance. It's a great game to bring the family to. We have our TH Media Family 4-pack, so you can get 4 tickets, 4 slices of Domino's Pizza, 4 sodas, and 2 Kids Zone vouchers. That starts at just $48.
That's great.
When you purchase in advance, so we'd encourage you to purchase in advance either today or tomorrow. Our box office open tomorrow from 10 to 4. And you also get a chance to skate with the Saints after the game. So get the autographs from all the Fighting Saints, including Hayden Shaw and Robbie Jackson, the 2 new Saints. So this day has everything. Sunday afternoon, Superhero Sunday with Y105 at the Mystique Community Ice Center. We drop the puck at 3:05, and make sure to set your clocks forward so you don't show up an hour late to the game.
Spring ahead.
Dan, I wanted to ask you this. What teams match up well against the Fighting Saints, or what teams have they had success against this season? In other words, as teams are watching the season get closer and closer to its conclusion, which teams should fans be hoping the Fighting Saints avoid or get paired up against, at least early on in the playoffs?
Wow, that's a dangerous
I know
question.
it is. I know.
It is. But we'll go by the numbers.
Yeah, you guys have played well against Cedar Rapids.
We've played well against Cedar Rapids.
Yeah.
That would be one team. They beat us a couple weeks ago on a Sunday afternoon, 1-0, third game in 3 days for both teams. But overall this season, I believe we're 4-2 against the Rough Riders. So we've played well against Cedar Rapids. We've struggled against Youngstown. We're 1-3 against the Youngstown Phantoms, and they came in and beat us early in the season at the Mystique Community Ice Center, shut us out on our own home ice, which rarely happens but does happen. And then we lost 2 in Youngstown, and just with the travel, especially in a conference semifinal series, that's one that worries me. It would be a shortened series, so we'd probably start the series on a Tuesday, end it the following Tuesday, 5 games in 8 days with that kind of travel. That's a series we probably want to avoid. Youngstown, being an outlier in our league, is used to that travel. They're used to longer bus rides. I think that would be an advantage for the Phantoms. So as we pair up near the end of the season, let's try to avoid Youngstown if we can.
You, as the team president, you're saying we want the first seed. As a fan, I'll just say that for you, that you'd rather almost have the 4 than the 3.
It depends.
Because
it depends where Youngstown.
Yeah,
is.
exactly.
It really depends
if the thing
where
stays
Youngstown
status
is.
quo.
And selfishly, I think we all would love to play Cedar Rapids in the playoffs. We have a great rivalry.
Exactly.
Prairie Farms Cowbell Cup rival. We played them in the playoffs last year. It was a terrific series, and I think that would really, really energize our fan base and theirs. It could be a great series. It would be fun to play them in the conference final. We played them in the conference semifinals last year. Boy, it would be fun to play them in the conference finals. So Muskegon's the other team. We split against Muskegon this year. So, it's going to be interesting coming down the stretch. 4 really good teams in the Eastern Conference.
John, why don't you go ahead and ask this final question to Dan?
Okay, Dan, talk about the winning edge contest you guys are having this month.
That's a great question. American Trust, our presenting sponsor for the last 5 seasons. Every year at the end of the year, American Trust has given away $5,000, and they're doing it again. That's the grand prize on April 10th. And leading up to the April 10th contest, you can register to win other great prizes tonight at our game that we drop the puck in just about 50 minutes from now at 7:35. You can win a chance to ride the team bus to Madison on March 29th with the team, attend the game, ride the bus back with the team. Hopefully it's a happy bus ride back. But those are the types of prizes. You can sit in the penalty box for a period of a Fighting Saints game, be in the locker room for the coach's pregame speech, win a pizza party at Magoo's Pizza with 2 of your favorite Fighting Saints players. So we're going to give away prizes at every Fighting Saints game between now and April 10th, including the $5,000 grand prize on April 10th. Sign up at American Trust locations, at Dubuque Fighting Saints home games, or on American Trust Facebook page. So 3 ways to sign up. Sign up often because we're giving away those multiple prizes, and you can have multiple entries, and it means more shots at $5,000 when we draw for it on April 10th. And thanks to American Trust for the Winning Edge promotion here.
Hey, by the way, Dan, thank you so much for the information. As always, just a wealth of information, DubuqueFightingSaints.com. Make sure you follow the Fighting Saints on Twitter, too, if you do the tweeting thing. Before we do this, any of you guys here at TPC, have you guys not signed up to win Dubuque Fighting Saints tickets? I feel like Whoopi Goldberg in Sister Act at the very beginning, which is exactly casino.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got some names in here. I'm going to have you draw 2 names out of there. And again, these are all you can eat suite tickets into the Mystique Casino suite. I want to thank Mystique for hooking up these tickets. This is for Sunday's game. And again, puck drops at 3:05 against the Chicago Steel. First name is Allison Juleson. Allison Juleson, are you here? Allison going once.
Allison?
There she is.
There she is. Cool.
She's there.
Allison, come on up. All right, let's get another name then and hook up another pair of tickets. You want to get signed up now, Dad? Now that you hear me talking about this? Not at all? Okay. All right.
Oh, wow. How does that happen?
Is Travis boyfriend, husband, brother? Okay, well, you guys have now 4 tickets to the game on Sunday against the Chicago Steel. These are 4 tickets. Can you find 2 other people enjoy that? There you go. Enjoy, guys.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks for getting signed up. Appreciate it. And again, game tonight starts at 7:35. If you're looking for something to do this evening, definitely stop down and enjoy the Fighting Saints game as they take on the Green Bay Gamblers tonight. Again, home and home series tomorrow at Chicago, and then home on Sunday for Superhero Sunday. I tell you what, I think I've got more tickets. Let's just get all these.
Are you
out
sure
of here.
they might have a cousin? Are we could.
Here, we'll just use these two right now. And there we go.
There we go.
Corinne Otting. Are you here, Corinne? Corinne. All right.
Ben
You
Stein,
gotta be
Ferris
present to
Bueller.
win. Yeah. Gotta be present. Yeah. Bueller. Holly Schneider.
Hey!
Come on down.
Very excited there.
All right. Holly, there you go. And again, Dan, thank you so much for stopping by. We appreciate it.
Absolutely, guys. Thanks
All
so
right.
much.
All right. Good luck to your team tonight and all weekend long. And we're going to take a short break. We're going to come back, wrap up the show. Want to get to some Major League Baseball talkers that we haven't hit on yet. And also, one more time, wish good luck to some local high school teams who are going to be competing in state tournaments here this weekend and into next week. It's the Jeff Robb Show, live at TPC Sports Bar, Mystique Casino on AM 1490 WDBQ. Perfect. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Yep. You are. And actually, they said, yeah, they said a phone on the side for me. They'll give me these.
Yeah, we'll get those with it too. What are you doing, Blackjack? Really? Good luck. That's my guy. Let's see. Perfect. This is what I need. All right, see you, Lynn. Thanks for stopping by.
Please stand by. All right. That's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Hey, buddy. And 6? Okay. Cool. Yeah, I'm only needing about 5 minutes on this, and then put a wrap on it. You got 5 or 4 minutes for the break into the top of the hour.
John Torres is in the building.
How you doing, buddy?
Yeah.
One
Hey,
more segment.
we got to pay for this somehow.
Go ahead, Amanda. All right, final segment here from TPC Sports Bar, at least for this week. Again, we're back here every Friday night at Mystique Casino, and we encourage you to join us if you can. If not, of course, listen on the radio or also on YouTube, thanks to the live stream. And again, you can catch a link to that on our Facebook page and our Twitter account. And then a third way you can listen is listen back to the show in podcast form. And we have a podcast page set up, and you can find a link to that at eagle102rocks.com. You can also find that at WDBQAM.com. So, John, before we go any further here, we mentioned this at the top of the show, but I do want to mention it again. I want to wish good luck to
Sure.
local sports teams who are going to be competing in the state tournament. The Western Dubuque girls basketball team is going to be playing Harlan tomorrow night at 6 p.m. They get a state championship rematch against Harlan. So they faced them last year. Get them again tomorrow night. Good luck to the Bobcats. The Waller Golden Eagles, your alma mater, going to be playing Waverly Shell Rock in the Iowa Class 3A state quarterfinal on Tuesday at 6:35. Cascade going to be playing Regina on Tuesday at 10:30 a.m. in, I believe that's 2A action. So state tournament basketball, girls this weekend, boys all next week. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. The Chicago Bulls play the Indiana Pacers. In fact, that game is going on right now. Can you give me a quick score update on that one, John, by chance? I know you got ESPN up. Yeah. The Blackhawks have the Oilers tonight. That puck drops at 7:30. And again, as Dan Lev, Dubuque Fighting Saints president, just mentioned, Gamblers are at the Mystique Community Ice Center tonight to take on the Fighting Saints at 7:35, and then they're at home again on Sunday at 3:05.
The Bulls are up by 1 over Indiana with about 4 minutes left in the first half.
Okay, got a few minutes here. Just want to touch on Major League Baseball talkers that we haven't gotten to yet, and just some things that we're curious to watch as the Major League Baseball season gets closer and closer to, well, at least the regular season gets underway here in less than a month. One of the things I'm curious to watch is, and we've talked about this team probably more than we ever thought we would on a show that tries to keep it fairly local in terms of sports of interest or teams of interest. But can the Padres get offensive production from their infield? I mean, they have hitters in the outfield that they've acquired: Justin Upton, Will Myers, Matt Kemp, and they almost always have good pitching. At least pitching that's good enough to contend, especially in that spacious park. Question is, though, can they get production from their infield offensively? That'll be something that I'll be keeping my eyes on. Is there something in particular that jumps out for you?
No, but, mentioning the Padres, like I said earlier, at a time when everything is built from within, the Padres are going the exact opposite direction. I mean, they're spending a lot of money on veterans, some good veterans, but yeah, they're definitely taking a different mode.
How will the back end of the White Sox rotation produce is something else I'll be watching. Of course, Chris Sale, Jeff Samardzija, Jose Quintana are 1K per inning at worst pitchers. Who's after those power pitchers, though? Can John Danks return to his sub 4.0 ERA? Hector Noesi, another prospect, Carlos Rodon, are going to be in the battle for the fifth spot in the rotation. They signed closer David Robertson to a 4-year, $46 million contract to shore up one of the worst bullpens in the majors last year. But again, seeing how the rotation fills out for the White Sox is going to be very important because I believe they have the lineup to contend. I believe they have the first 3 starting pitchers good enough to contend. Now it's can they fill out the rest of that rotation?
The South Side team in Chicago may take a little bit of the thunder. Everybody's kind of waiting for the Cubs to come around, and everybody's kind of thinking, 81 wins this year, maybe next year, next season, maybe a playoff team. But the White Sox, quietly, at least for fans around Dubuque, have really improved themselves, and they may be a contender this year.
I'll make this prediction right now. I think both Chicago baseball teams are going to make the playoffs
this year.
Yeah, this year.
That's a bold prediction.
This year, and the AL Central is tough.
Yeah.
This year it is because Kansas City's going to fall off. I do believe. I mean, they've lost some really good talent, James Shields, and
Cleveland.
But you got Detroit, who's still going to be tough. Cleveland's going to be really tough. So I mean, there's not one team that just jumps out and you're like, gosh, that's a dominant team. But across the board, I think every team got better, with the exception being the Kansas City Royals. So I think the Chicago White Sox, they're my pick to win the AL Central. Being a Twins fan, it's hard for me to do that. But
you think the Cubs get in as a wild card?
I think that the Cubs get in as NL Central champs this year.
Really?
Yeah.
And you heard it here first on the Jeff Robb Show.
Yeah, I think they're going to usurp the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah, they're going to be fun to watch. And I'm not a Cubs fan, but obviously living here in the Midwest, I watch a lot of Cubs baseball, and they're definitely going to be interesting to watch this year.
One thing to watch for St. Louis Cardinals fans, whether or not they can overcome the death of teammate Oscar Taveras, who this past offseason, of course, was involved in that car accident. not just mentally, but in their lineup. You know, is Jason Hayward going to do well enough to hit that number 2 spot? Is Johnny Peralta going to produce to be a requisite number 5 hitter? Just a couple of questions. Adam Wainwright has an abdominal strain and could be available for the team season opener at Wrigley on April 5th, but he's missing some valuable time. I mean, Adam Wainwright's Adam Wainwright. It's not like he needs spring training to learn how to pitch or anything like that. One last thing here to close, and I've mentioned this a couple of times, who bats 3, 4, 5 in the Yankees order? That's going to be interesting to watch because with injuries and age taking its toll on a lot of those players, Teixeira, McCann, Headley, A-Rod, there's a lot of expensive Beltran. There's a lot of expensive pieces in that order. It's just figuring out where they go.
Yeah, they really are a new New York Yankees team, and a lot of them components won't be here, 2 years down the road.
John, good work this week as
Thank you,
always,
Jeff.
and we'll be doing this again next Friday.
Yep, and we'll see you Sunday at the Saints game.
Yep, yes, you will. Sounds good. And again, we want to thank Amanda here at Mystique and also Big Mike back in the studio. We've got CBS Sports Radio coming up next here on AM 1490 WDBQ.
Yep, thank you. Always fun.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're all going out next Saturday.